So good afternoon, Mr. Chan and managers of Kitchen Best. My name is Peter Wong, and with me today are my fellow colleagues Jenny, Michael, and Felicia. So we understand that the revenue goal that was previously set for Kitchen Best has not been achieved yet, and throughout our 1 month time at Kitchen Best, we have identified the problems and have come up with a few recommendations that hopefully Kitchen Best can take into consideration and perhaps implement and solve the problems and reach the revenue goal in the future. So before talking about the recommendations, let me go over the problems that we have identified, and it includes the ones shown on the screen, including events of bribery, embezzlement, nepotism, and complicity. Although it might seem like a lot of problems to handle, with a few recommendations, we feel that there's only one major lead up to these 4 problems, and it is the lack of business ethics in employees. And because of this, the recommendations that we'll be talking about today and evaluating will be focused on this problem of the lack of business ethics in employees, and how through our recommendations we're going to encourage employees to act in a more lawful and ethical manner. And these problems, we feel that there's an urgency to address these problems because number one, employees of Kitchen Best are earning a personal benefit at the cost of the company's resources, which is really slowing down the growth of the company. For example, at times employees might be inflating the value of reimbursements that they're requiring from Kitchen Best, and also in the long run, if these problems are not prevented, there's a problem that customers might be lost, because currently we are all aware that Kitchen Best currently maintains business relationships with other companies through unethical practices, and by preventing these problems from happening again, it forces Kitchen Best to focus on increasing their competitiveness and efficiency in competing with other firms in the industry and not through unethical practices. So for this reason, we have come up with 3 main recommendations that my colleagues will talk about today. The first one is a pre-employment vetting procedure. The second one is a set of code of conduct, and the third one is a setting up of an independent sector to monitor the employees of Kitchen Best. So now I hand it over to Jenny to talk about the pre-vetting procedures.
Thank you. So to prevent the problems just mentioned, I would like to suggest the pre-employment vetting procedure. As many employers are concerned about the criminal convictions or ongoing involvement in illegal activities of the company, it is suggested that the Kitchen Best should also carry out the pre-vetting checking, especially on those candidates who are seeking a position which requires a high security or position of trust. And it is important to run these checks to make sure that the candidates do not have any criminal convictions, so as to reduce the recruitment risk of the company. And from these checks, we can also know more about the stability of the role for these candidates, and also their ability to see if they are suitable for this company. And besides that, we can also assess their values and beliefs, and even their honesty to the company to see if they are in line with the norms of the company. And lastly, the employers can also evaluate their patience and commitments to the company under this pre-vetting process. So these are some examples of the background checks. As you can see, you can check their financial background through the employee credit check, and also their employment history through the employment references. And the most important that you can also check their criminal record to see if they have involved in any criminal or unethical practice in the past. So let's see how it can benefit your company in the future. There are 3 significant advantages. Firstly, it can help save costs in training unsuitable employees, as the suitability and the quality of the employees have been improved. And also, as the correct candidates have been chosen for the company, the overall performance and the productivity of the company can also be enhanced. And lastly, and the most important, that it can help to reduce the potential risks posed by the employees, and to help and to protect the brand name and maintain the performance of the company in the long run. However, there are some limitations. For example, you may miss out employees who have good working performance but disqualified in the pre-vetting test. And also, the process may be complex and time-consuming, and it may reduce the feasibility of your company. And lastly, it may be expensive for some background checkings, and it depends on which kind of information you would like to know. Despite of these limitations, it is important for the employers to carry out this pre-vetting procedure to make sure that the working environment for the employee is safe, and to prevent any potential unethical or criminal practice in the future. So now maybe we can pass the time to talk about the second recommendations.
Thank you, Jenny. So, besides the aforementioned pre-employment vetting procedures, our second recommendation is to implement a code of conduct. Now, what basically is a code of conduct? It is basically a set of rules and guidelines that clearly highlight the company's vision, the company's discipline, and its ethical stance. Additionally, it also provides the expectations of the companies towards not just the employees, but to each other as well as protects the business as it helps to provide some suggestive guidelines of dealing with problems. So as you can see, this is an example of a code of conduct provided by the Coca-Cola company. So I've separated it into three particular categories. First is the expectations in terms of how employees treat each other and how high-level management treats each other. Second is the conflicts of interest. Any conflicts that may have happened, such as with relatives and friends, or even kickbacks, as we call it. The third is the integrity in terms of how we deal with any unlawful activity whatsoever. So, with the code of conduct, we can expect a lot of potential benefits. The first is that since the code of conduct serves as a step towards a new ethical mindset, this therefore can help motivate employees to be more ethical and to adapt towards the new business mindset. As well, secondly, it helps to identify a lot of the gray areas surrounding business. Now, what are gray areas? Basically, areas that are involving a lot of unlawful practices or activities whatsoever. This can range to bribery to all the way to nepotism as well. Through the code of conduct can help suggest some guidelines that can help to deal with these problems as well. The third benefit is that it also provides a positive public identity. As I've said, the code of conduct is basically a social implication that the company is willing to be more ethical, to be more legal in such terms. Therefore, this presents a more brand awareness towards the public as well as to increase the reputation of the company as well. Lastly, it is very easy to implement as well as very inexpensive to reproduce. Now, of course, every recommendation is not necessarily perfect, and I am here to produce the limitations of the code of conduct. The first is that it is very hard to enforce. As I've said, the code of conduct is merely guidelines. Employees may not choose to follow it, even though the company may force them to try to enforce it among their daily business practice. And as such, without constant supervision, motivation, or even an emphasis on accountability, it is very hard to enforce this code of business conduct. Secondly, this requires also an independent sector as a complement. Now, of course, having a new fresh face in a company can help to really provide a new idea, maybe some new creative ideas on how to implement this ethical behavior. As such, this may be costly in terms of either forming the independent sector or as well as hiring another independent sector to help out with maintaining the ethical activity within the business. Lastly, there will be a hard transition period. Now, of course, many employees are still adhering towards the traditional business practices. As such, it will be a very hard transition. And this hard transition can cause some employees to be full of stress, or otherwise to the point of direct resignation. Now I'd like to pass the time to Felicia.
Thank you, Michael. As Michael said, it might be quite easy to set up a code of conduct. The most difficult thing is to guide an employee to act according to the code of conduct. Kitchen Bass might need to form an independent sector to ensure that the employees will engage with customers and suppliers in an ethical way. The main duties of this committee are to monitor and evaluate the operational processes so that the company can operate effectively, efficiently, and to ensure that the employees act in an ethical manner. We can take IRS, Internal Revenue Service, a U.S. government agency as our example. IRS has established an which duty is to improve internal control. By possessing a good internal control, the agency can obtain reliable information that are protected from fraud. It can also improve operational efficiency and effectiveness, and it can also ensure that the employees behave in ethical ways. The permanent members of this management control group consist of senior executive from business operating division, finance staff, and program manager. The variety of the members is essential as they need to assess the operational processes from different perspectives. Kitchen Best might need to form this type of committee to prevent future recurrences of criminal offense. This recommendations is feasible to be implemented in this company, though it has some limitations as well as strengths. So what are the strengths and limitations of this recommendation? By forming an independent committee, Kitchen Best can encourage employees to behave in ethical manners. This committee might also have Kitchen Best to improve its internal control, which means it can help to improve the company's operational effectiveness and efficiency. However, by forming a new independent sector might consume a lot of Kitchen Best resources, and it might incur a lot of costs. It might also a bit complicated to form a new independent sector because the members who are appointed to join this committee might need to assign other employees to assume their previous responsibilities. Despite its limitations, this recommendation will likely improve the situation of Kitchen Best and will give a lot of benefit to Kitchen Best. To conclude our presentation, I will pass the time to Peter Wong.
So despite the limitations that my colleagues have talked about, such as the high cost and the high commitment it takes to set up an independent sector, we feel that it is really justified to implement our three recommendations because, number one, it leads to a more ethical workplace when the employees that we're employing are equipped with a more ethical knowledge and also have improved efficiency because the employees right now, we feel that they're not really motivated to work for the company because they can look to unethical ways to benefit themselves. So they wouldn't improve their efficiency at work to earn rewards in a more ethical manner, and it also prevents any more risks of legal issues if the quality of our employees that we're employing are higher, and finally, hopefully, it will lead to revenue growth. So that's it for our presentation. Thanks for listening, and we hope that Kitchen Best can take our recommendations into consideration, and we can take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, guys. You said you're going to have a code of conduct. Who's going to write that?
That code of conduct will mostly be written by a high-level management because as after they know what the business is served for, they know what the business, the values, the beliefs, and everything. And this may be also be coordinated with the independent sector, as I've said that one of the limitations is that it really requires an independent sector in order to really enforce this whole code of business conduct within the employees. So if there is a chance of hiring an independent sector, then they can coordinate with the high-level management on what the company expects of its employees.
Okay, thanks. And for this year, I think you also mentioned independent sector. I'm a bit confused what that means. What is this independent sector?
This independent committee, as Michael said, it is easy to set up a code of conduct, but it is not easy to guide the employee to act according to this code of conduct. So this committee will monitor the operational process so that the employee so that it can decrease the probability of the employee behaving in an unethical manner.
So by sector, you mean an organization?
A committee.
A committee?
Yeah.
External?
No, it's part of the company. For example, the members is like from the company business operating division, so they will know better about the company operational processes, and this these members should be a trustworthy person. You can, as you can make this decision who are the members, and this. So basically, this independent, this startup come from the inside of the company.
Okay, thanks. Have you guys thought about the kind of resistance you're going to get from the staff? Because you're basically saying to them, enough of this, it has to stop. Some of them might leave. How are you going to persuade the boss that he needs to do this? Because some people are just going to resist. They're not going to buy into it.
Well, we can persuade the boss by, I guess, providing some more incentives towards the employees. Because most of the time, employees, they really look for more positive catharsis more than the negative catharsis. So in some ways, providing incentives for just basically following such as the code of conduct, just basically doing the ethical practice can help to really motivate employees because they're receiving more just by doing something that is legal in the company's sense.
What kind of benefits?
Like such as maybe a bonus of some sort, like a temporary, like seasonal bonuses, like maybe $100 more minimum at least. I mean, if the bonus, can be negotiable, like through the high-level management, of course. It depends, of course, it depends on the budget, like how much you have. If there's any extra money left, then yes, they can use it for those seasonal bonuses. And these bonuses can help to provide employees to earn more because as many people want, they work for their self-interest. So they do it not just they do the ethical practice not for the company, they do it more for the bonus. So if you provide the bonus to them, they'll be more willing to follow the code of business conduct.
Okay, thank you.